Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome to another time of Bible teaching. I appreciate each and every one of you that come here that share this time with me, looking into God's Word and looking into the story of Messiah. A lot of us, I do prophecy and I love prophecy, but if we forget the basics of what Messiah taught us at a deeper level, then we're missing everything. I mean, who cares if you even know the day and the hour that the Messiah is going to come and everything else? If you're not saved and you don't have salvation, that just means you're going to know what you missed. The Messiah told us there's a stairway to heaven, highway to hell. And of course, everybody thinks they're on that stairway. But, most of the people are on the highway. So, I don't know how it breaks down. That's not my job. But I'm just saying we need to be in his word beyond just what does prophecy teach. Right, so we're going to open up our Bibles. We're continuing on in Matthew 9, verse 18. So let's get that opened up. And slide this over a little bit. Okay, here we go. And we're talking about how Messiah is healing people. He's still healing. Called Matthew. And we spent a lot of time last week talking about fasting and talking about what it meant, about putting the unshrunk cloth on an old garment to patch it, and also about the new wine and the wineskins. Really, really good teachings. If you missed that, go back and look at it. Now we're going to see stories about healing, and it's actually pretty cool when you look at these. And I'm going to give you a little of a heads up. What we're looking at here is Messiah is claiming to be God. He's claiming to be the promised Savior because he's fulfilling prophecy as he does these healings. And the other thing you'll notice over and over, that the recipients of these healings have one thing in common. Okay, maybe two things in common. First, they recognize who he is. But second, they have faith. And it's not just saying I have faith. It's an ongoing acting upon that faith. So let's jump right in through the story. A girl resurrected to life and a woman healed. While he, Messiah, spoke these things to them, behold, a ruler came and worshipped him, saying, my daughter has just died. But come and lay your hand on her, and she will live. Wow. There's a lot packed in here. First of all, if you read the parallel account in Mark 5, it's going to give you more information that's not here. We know that this ruler is actually someone from the synagogue. It doesn't, and I believe it's Jairus, is the name that's given to us. But when it says he worshipped him, what is it saying? It's saying he knows that he is God, because you only worship God. That's the only person that you are supposed to worship. Go to Exodus 34:14. Exodus 34:14. For you shall worship no other God, for the Lord whose name is jealous is a jealous God. So you don't worship anybody else. And Messiah picked up on this in Matthew 4, when he's being tempted during the 40 days of Teshuvah that leads up to the high holy days of Rosh Hashanah, the Yom Kippur. You might remember this, 4:10. And Jesus said, away with you, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve. So this religious leader is basically saying, I know that you're God, for worshiping him. Now, you'll also want to think about this when the wise men came and Messiah was born. Foreign leaders of other countries, they're not going to come and worship some Jewish baby. The wise men would be considered the students in a yeshuva, a teaching center. And the greater teaching center was to the east in Babylon at that point in time. Anyhow. Let's go back to Matthew 9. And okay, so he says, Naaman worshipped him, saying, my daughter has just died. Come and lay your hand on her, and she will live. What is that? What is Jairus here showing? This is some pretty serious faith. Wow. And he's putting his faith in Messiah. I would just say that we can all learn a lesson there. How many times have you heard somebody say, I tried everything. The only thing I have left to do is pray. That should be the first thing. That's faith. So how did Messiah respond when he saw this kind of faith? Well, first of all, before we go there, why would this man, Jairus, believe that Messiah could raise his daughter from the dead? Go to Isaiah 26. This is actually a rapture verse, but it wouldn't have been known as a rapture verse at that point in time. Isaiah 26, starting in verse 19. And I've gone over this verse so many times in all of my teachings, I'm not going to go through all of it. But your dead shall live together with my dead body. They shall arise, awake and sing. Oh, the awakening blast, Rosh Hashanah, and sing. Singing a new song in Revelation 5. But this is something it was understood that the Messiah would do, is raise dead people, bring dead back to life. So this person knows the prophecies and has seen enough of what Messiah has done to say, okay, I get it. I see who he is. He can do this. All right, so let's go back to Matthew 9. You might just want to keep a finger there if you've got your paper Bible. And I really do encourage paper Bibles. My Bible is just written up, highlighted, everything. And it's cool because when I go and I read in it, I've got all my references to other stories and other things, and it just helps make everything so much nicer. Where are we at here? Am I in the right place? No, I'm in 19. No wonder. Matthew 9. We got some things coming up. They're going to be really cool. And oh my goodness, wait till next week. Wow. But anyhow, with that said, so Messiah sees this faith and his response is, it's not like, why should I? Who are you? How much have you given of yourself to here? Who are your connections? What can you do for me, or what have you done for me lately? None of that. Just Jesus arose and followed him, as did his disciples. And suddenly, a woman who had a flow of blood for 12 years came from behind and touched the hem of his garment. For she said to herself, if I only touch his garment, I shall be made well. Wow. Now, if we read this in other parallel passages, you know that this woman has had an issue for bleeding for how long? 12 years. And, people say, okay, she's leaking some blood for 12 years. Okay, it's not that bad. It's not killing her. Let's give you an idea of how bad this really is for this woman and what it does for her living conditions where she's at. Leviticus 15, because this is actually really, really terrible for her. Leviticus 15, verse 38. What do I have? Give me a second. I'm sorry, 25 through 27. Here we go. If a woman has a discharge of blood for many days, other than at her time of her customary impurity, I don't think I need to explain that. I don't like talking about these things. I'm a guy. Or if it runs beyond her usual time of impurity, all the days of her unclean discharge shall be the days of her customary impurity. she shall be unclean. Every bed on which she lays, all the days of her discharge shall be as to her as the bed of her impurities. And whatever she sits on shall be unclean, as the uncleanness of her impurity. Whoever touches those things shall be unclean, and shall wash his clothes and bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. Wow. So for 12 years, basically, this woman is an outcast. She can't go to the synagogue. She can't go anywhere. My understanding is that she'd be wearing like a red clothing, like letting people know she's unclean. And it could be why she didn't just push her way through the crowd, because they would have fled from her and it'd been real obvious, and why she had to sneak and crawl to get to his robe. No, the thing is, and back in Matthew, it said it could only touch the hem of his garment. Why would that I will be made well? He's gone through this for 12 years. I know, for all I know, she's been, bled dry from all the other doctors. I think there is something about that in one of the other passages. I could be wrong. But she's probably tried seeking every, means possible. And then she's convinced this one thing, if I can touch this one part, the hem of his garment, I will be made clean. Why? Why would she think that? Well, she knows the prophecies about the Messiah. Go to Malachi 4. And I've done whole videos about this, and I'm going to touch on it, but I'm going to try to keep it really short with just a couple verses as to what this is actually saying at this point. Give me 1 second. I feel like I'm blind here. Malachi 4. And in verse 2, but to you who fear my name. Okay, that's a condition. For you who fear my name. And the fear of the Lord is the beginning of understanding. It's trusting in him because you know who he is. You have a respectful reverence or an awe of him because you know. You who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness shall arise. That's Messiah. With healing in his wings, and he shall go out, and you shall go out and grow like that. Stall-fed calves. I know most women aren't going to want to think about going out like fat, stall-fed calves, but it's talking about health and prosperity. With healing in his wings. Is Messiah a bird? No. The word there in Hebrew is kanop, or kanof. It's spelled with a P, but I believe it's pronounced kanof. Son of Righteousness in his wings, right here. See the kanop, K-N-A-P. Let's look at this word a little bit. Wing, extremity, edge, winged, border, corner, shirt, wing, extremity, shirt, corner of a garment. So it's a corner of a garment. And we're just going to touch a couple places. It's used like 108 times. We're not going to go to all of them. You're welcome. But let's go to Numbers 15. It's one of the earlier places where this is used. And we want to do verses 37 to 41. This is what the woman understands. It says he has healing in his wings. 37. Okay. And again, the Lord spoke to Moses saying, so is this Moses talking to us? No, this is the Lord our God speaking. Speak to the children of Israel, mixed multitude. We are grafted in. And tell them to make tassels on the corners of their garments. That word corners would be the off of the garments throughout your generations, in other words, forever. And put a blue thread in the tassels of the corners. Now, this is a zitzi, 613 twists and turns that represents the law. Keep reading. And you shall have the tassel, and you may look upon it and remember the commandments of the Lord, and do them, and that you may not follow the harlotry to which your own heart and your own eyes are inclined. And you will remember, and you will do all my commandments, and be holy to your God. See, so these commandments, the law, the instructions of God, and that's all the Torah means is instruction, brings healing. Okay, that's how she knew to touch the corner of the robe. And at that time, today they have it on the prayer shawl. I don't know if it was on the prayer shawl then, but at that time it was on the corners of the robe, and that's what she's touching. It also speaks of protection. Go to the book of Ruth. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. Ruth, chapter 3. You understand Boaz is the kinsman redeemer. He's a picture of Messiah. And she was told to go and lay at his feet and put the cover over her. Okay. And he said, "Who are you?" And she answered, "I am Ruth, your maidservant. Take your maidservant under your wing, for you are a close relative." Anyhow, you can read the story. If you read the video about the Aleph and Tav, it's really cool. Alpha and Omega, I am the Alpha and Omega means nothing. Revelation's written in Hebrew. I am the Aleph and Tav. That Aleph and Tav shows up 11,000 times in the Old Testament. There's just two letters put in places that are not words, and they're not translated, but they're there, and they're still there today. And with Ruth, from the time that she marries Boaz, the Aleph and Tav, the Messiah is with her for the rest of the time. Wasn't with her before that point. Just something that came into my mind, something that's real interesting. And go and check the video of the Aleph and Tav. It is fascinating. And there's a video about what language was the New Testament written in. Check it out if you have a question about me saying that the book of Revelation was written in Hebrew. All right. Let's go to one more place with this, Zechariah 8, and see how this applies to us today. So we want to go to Zechariah chapter 8, verse 23. Thus says the Lord of hosts, in those days, okay, you have two things here. Lord of hosts, end times prophecy, okay? In those days, end times prophecy, but it's not in that day, the last 1,000-year days, it starts before that. In those days, men from every language and nation shall grasp the sleeve of a Jewish man. That's the kanaf. That sleeve is the kanaf. That corner of a garment where the tzitzi, where the law would hang. Of a Jewish man saying, "Let us go with you, for we have heard that God is with you." So this is telling us that people from every nation, every tribe, every bloodline, all over the world, people are going to be turning to Messiah, through the instructions of God, the Torah. And that's what's happening. It's happened to me. It's happened to a lot of people I know. All right, so back to Matthew. That's amazing how time gets away doing these videos. A lot of cool stuff here. Matthew 9. I'm looking at this. I'm already saying I might not get as far as I want, but that's okay. We'll take it to when the time seems right, and then we stop and we'll pick it up the next week. For she said to herself, "If I may only touch his garment, I shall be made well." That's some serious, serious faith. But Jesus turned around and he saw her, and said, "Be of good cheer, daughter. Your faith has made you well." And the woman was made well at that hour. What if, let me pose a question to you. What if she really didn't have faith? She was faking. Or somebody just told her. And she said, "Well, this is not going to work, but I'll try it. I'll try everything else. Why not try it your way? It's not going to work." What would have happened if she touched a robe or the tzitzi? Well, she would have just touched a robe and a tzitzi, and it would have done nothing. It's the faith that makes her well. It's the faith that makes us well. And that doesn't mean that every time somebody's sick, every time somebody's about to die, that if we have faith, it's not going to happen. It doesn't mean that. But Messiah can and will step in at times. All right, so now we get to the house. Jesus came into the ruler's house and saw the flute player and the noisy crowd wailing. So he's at the house of Jairus. And what's actually ironic is the people wailing, a crowd of people wailing. People would actually hire professional wailers at a time like this. But the flute player, that's interesting. Go to Isaiah 5. I just want to show you something about the flute. Any flute players out there are going to love this. Isaiah 5, verse 12. And I'm just going to go here for the word flute. And we're going to look at it in tools. And it's going to be rod or the pipe. That's the flute. And you'll see pipe or flute. But read down here in this definition down here. A pipe, a flute, so called from it being pierced. It was known as the pierced one. What does that make you think of? Now, the other thing that's cool is that when back in the day, when they would go up to Jerusalem for the pilgrimage feast days, they would go by cities, and like the whole city would go together. You know, and the women would go together, would hang out together, and they'd be talking about, women's stuff, and the kids would be hanging out, and they're going to be talking about men's stuff or kids stuff, games or whatever. And the men are hanging out, and they're talking about like football that'll happen in like 2,000 years or whatever they're talking about, how to fix their car. You know what I'm saying? But that's how they didn't know that Messiah was missing at 12 years old when they were to a day's journey out. They didn't realize their son was missing because everybody would just hang out with, the kids or whatever. But when they would go, they would be led by a flute player, by the pierced one, by Messiah. It's actually really cool when you see that. All right, back to Matthew. Matthew 9. And we're down, 24? What verse we leave off at? And he said to them, make room, for the girl is not dead, but asleep. And they ridiculed him. Wow. What does he mean? I mean, she was dead. That's what we heard. He's going to bring her back to life. What does she mean? He's just asleep. Go back to Isaiah 26 real quick. We were just there, and we're going to go to the same place. Well, I should have told you to hold your place, but that's okay. It's nice to do the Bible gymnastics, and you get used to where everything is in your Bible. They shall arise, awake, and sing, you who dwell in the dust. Who awakes? Dead people? No, people who aren't sleeping would awake. Now go to 1 Corinthians 15 and see what Paul said about the rapture. 1 Corinthians 15, verse 51. Behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. Who are the ones that are asleep? These are people who died with faith. People who died in Christ. People who died, and they're going to be coming back, and they're going to be resurrected back to life. They're not dead. They're asleep. So that's what Messiah is saying about this girl, because he knows that he's about to bring her back to life. This is a picture of the resurrection, a picture of the rapture. So let's go back to Matthew 9. So they ridiculed him. I'd hate to be those people that were out there ridiculing Messiah, but hey, guess what? They can always come back. All right. But when the crowd was put outside, not they went outside, they got put outside. He went in and took her by the hand, and the girl arose. And the report went out into all the land. Why did they get put outside? What were they lacking? They lacked faith. So they're not going to be there to see the miracle. I want to look at what did Messiah say when he did this? Let's go to Mark 5, a parallel story. Verse 42. And the girl arose and walked, for she was 12 years of age. Ooh, interesting. The woman, how long did she was bleeding? 12 years. How old was this little girl? 12 years. Is there a connection? Probably. Just keep it in mind, and we'll talk a little later about it. But go back to 41. He took the child by the hand and said to her, Talitha Kumi, which is translated, little girl, I say to you, arise. Actually, that's from the Aramaic. If this is from the Hebrew, it's arise. The Kumi is arise. The Talitha is you who's in the Talit. The Talit is the prayer shawl that would wrap around you. And it would be that you would take the prayer shawl when you go into your prayer closet. Here's a little secret. They didn't have closets in their rooms. They didn't have prayer closets. I don't know anybody who goes into their closet. It's one-on-one time with God, quiet time, just you and God. But they would take their prayer shawl and bring it over their head. And that's the one-on-one time with God. And I'm not sure about that day, but as of today, that's where the talits would be. And it's the little girl, the one that's in the talit. He probably had wrapped her talit around this little girl. See, this talit is like a covering that provides shelter. And a Jewish man would take that prayer shawl and put it over his wife as a covering. I want to look at this a little bit because it's actually really cool. So go to Psalm 27. Now I have done Psalm 27 is probably one of my favorite passages in the Old Testament about the rapture. And oh my goodness, it is all about the rapture. I would suggest, maybe I'll add it. I'll try to remember to add a Psalm 27 teaching in my description. If I don't, remind me, or just Google Dave Paul Psalm 27. I've done several teachings on it. You'll get it. But it's really, really, really cool. So in Psalm 27, the Lord is my light and my salvation. What's that word, salvation? Yeshua. Whom shall I fear? But we want to skip down. I don't want to spend too long in here because I've done hour-long teachings on this chapter. For in the time of trouble, Jacob's trouble, the Jews get saved out of Jacob's trouble, out of tribulation. He shall hide me in his pavilion, in the secret place of his tabernacles. Those two words, when you look at the definitions, and I'm running out of time, but it talks about like a covering, particularly the tabernacle. And you would think that the Jewish people during tabernacles, they do their meals and their things outside, and there's a covering above them. He shall hide me. Oh, the day of concealment. Rosh Hashanah, the rapture, where we are concealed. And he will set me high upon a rock. Messiah is that rock. Now the lifter of my head, lifter of the head is a promotion, that he will lift up above the enemies around me. What are we going to be? We are going to be what? Come on, you know it. Kings and priests. We're going to get promoted. Therefore, I will offer sacrifices of joy. That word joy is actually teruah, a trumpet. Yes, it is. Look it up. In the tabernacle, yes, I will sing praise of the Lord. Here's the one thing that I really want to find here. Did I skip it? Eh? Yeah, verse 4. The one thing I've desired of the Lord, that I will seek. So this is David, the one thing that he desired of the Lord, that he's going to seek it, he's going to look after it, he's going to go for it. That I may dwell in the house of the Lord all of the days of my life. He's talking about this life and beyond, because that word life in Hebrew, you're not going to see it here, but it's plural. But I can prove that to you. Go to Psalm 23 and we'll see the same word. Psalm 23. I didn't get there. Give me a second. Psalms 23. And we want to go to verse 6. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. That's the same wording. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Ooh, forever. That's not just this life, it's this life and beyond. All right. Where are we at right now, time-wise? 31 minutes. Let's go ahead and... Do I want to do that? Let's see something real quick. Do you know what? I think I'm going to stop here. Making a nice, manageable, bite-size teaching. You got a big, long one yesterday or last week. And we got some really stuff that's going to come up that's going to be really cool. Let me go... I don't even think I'm going to finish Matthew 9 next week because what do we have left? We have the two blind men being healed, mute man speaking, and then Jesus has compassion. This one, Jesus has compassion. Oh my goodness. There is so much in here, especially in this little phrase. They're like sheep that have no shepherd. Wow. So we're going to wrap it up here, and we're going to get through this. So make sure you come back. Make sure you check out these teachings. To me, they just, every time I get in here, I learn more. It just blows my mind. Seeing this little girl, 12-year-old girl, brought back to life, and understanding what Messiah said was Hebrew, that's really a picture of the rapture. That's why she was not dead. He was just asleep. But that story would have never played out if it wasn't for her dad in the faith that this dad has for her child, has in Messiah and what Messiah can do for their children. I know as a parent, we all have issues with our children. Oh my goodness, I don't care how wonderful your children is. We got issues with our children. You know what I mean. And I do with mine. I really do need to turn things more over and have more faith in what Messiah can do. Anyhow, thank you so much for checking in, for watching this. If you're not following me, do so. May God bless you, and we'll be back next Saturday with another teaching in the book of Matthew. Take care.